When our organization speaks to government agencies, many of them ask us why they should consider edge-to-cloud video analytics solutions in their architectures and in their approaches to dealing with the challenges they're struggling with. Well, let's take it really from a couple points of view and really take it apart based upon even the definition of the question that's asked: edge-to-cloud video analytics. Well, let's start off with probably the word that everybody sort of understands, and that's the word video. The fact is that most government infrastructure already has a lot of sunk investment into video infrastructure that's used for security. And this creates a mountain of available data that organizations can do new things with. And this is one of the reasons that at Intel, we're very excited about the opportunity to use analytics on top of video to focus on new classes of solutions to very common problems. Topics like, worrying about whether workers are wearing the right types of protective equipment. Do they have their hard hat on? Do they have their safety glasses on? Are they walking where they should? Are they too close to somebody in an environment where they need to be separated? The application of analytics on top of the video that already is coming from existing infrastructure means that government agencies can get more out of their sunk cost by applying new technologies to what they've already got. And that is a natural opportunity for any government agency leader to look like they're spending efficiently and are thinking forward about the best ways to drive improvement. Now, the other key thing is, why edge to cloud? Edge to cloud is an interesting buzzword in the world of video analytics, and it's particularly important for government agencies. So many government agencies are dealing with sometimes aging infrastructure, networks that might be at risk, secure areas that don't have the opportunity to always be connected to the commercial cloud. The world's not as simple when you're running a government agency. When you have a secure facility that you just can't, connect up to the internet at will. The advantage of edge to cloud solutions for government agencies is we can make a decision on where it's appropriate to run the particular workload that's important. And in video analytics, this becomes extremely important because a lot of the infrastructure that we're dealing with monitoring with video doesn't always have the same kind of bandwidth that's needed to backhaul that video back to the cloud. So rather, what we can do is we can leverage edge processing on top of common analytic capabilities that can run right out on the edge, in other words, close to the data at hand, and then have those actions take, even if we can't get back to the cloud. Why is this beneficial? Well, God forbid something happens to the network infrastructure that's running your power grid, that's attached to your highway management system, that's linked to the dam that you're responsible for managing. These kinds of areas, if they're disconnected from the network, still have to operate seamlessly. And the power of edge processing is we can actually continue business as usual. In fact, even in the unusual circumstances of a disconnected world, edge platforms can continue monitoring. The great thing about thinking about edge to cloud solutions, particularly video-centric solutions, is they have proven success in areas that government has already experienced, not only here, but abroad, in all sorts of topics, from security, energy management, predictive maintenance and quality, worker health and safety, and yes, even supply chain efficiency. The time for sector agencies to be thinking about these new kinds of solutions is critical because we're at a convergence of lots of investment combined with urgent worldwide issues.
There was a recent case study conducted with the city of Bellevue, Washington, utilizing video edge analytics, basically looking to set up a smart city, but doing it in a thoughtful manner to start with some of the biggest pain points that exist in the city. Traffic management, not only cars, but people, and increasing safety in the city by using these analytics to know when to time lights, to know how long people are taking to cross the street. It's just a very beginnings of what the capabilities are available by utilizing the edge analytics. What they have, as Rob had mentioned, they've taken infrastructure that is already existing. They've overlaid machine learning algorithms and even AI algorithms to create value where this system was starting to age. So when you start to look at the implementation process, there are a few things that you really should be looking at and considering in the overall picture. One, what is the solution going to provide to the agency for the business or mission of that agency or department or division? From federal to state to local level, what are you looking to get from this deployment? In the case of smart video analytics, who's going to own the data? If you're riding on an existing infrastructure, who owns those cameras? Who has access to those cameras? Who's going to control and maintain that data that's being processed? Is the output of that camera something that is now government owned, or is it citizen owned, or is it government and citizen owned? What is the impact to what you're trying to accomplish if you don't own the data? And then the privacy of that data. If in a smart city you are taking images of people walking across the street, how long are you going to retain that data? Who is going to have access to that data outside of the intended use case, which is to help direct traffic and make it a safer city? Are you going to be supplying that data to advertisers who maybe want to advertise, or whatever the next step is? But understanding who is going to own that data and have access to it. And then finally, the technology itself. Not everybody can go and put this type of analytics on every device at the end that's aged to make it better, or they can't go buy new devices because they simply don't have the capability of that type of spend. So looking at what infrastructure you are going to apply this to is very important. You have to have the capability to run it at the edge. You have to have the capability of the backhaul to get it back to the data center to understand the information that you received. So what does that infrastructure look like? You can't just go out and say, I'm going to take a camera that was built in the 80s. It still works fine, and I'm going to add something to it. There's a good chance you're probably not going to be able to. So understanding how that architecture and that infrastructure is going to work is going to be key to your implementation process.
Some of the infrastructure that would be required to establish your analytic framework for video analytics would be defining what your edge is, right? And so the first piece about that is defining what the edge is and what the edge means to you, right? You look at it, is this something that I'm doing on the critical edge aspect, to where picture it as an agency that maybe I have a police officer or someone filling a similar role, that I'm trying to do positive identification on someone to compare, right, not just their driver's license, but any other systems that I may have connection back to, right? Think of Customs and Border Patrol or any other agency that has to do any type of implementation or control in that aspect. As a part of that, they may have a local processing unit on their personal camera, or that may be being processed back in their vehicle. As a part of that, right now you're starting to look at very small form factors. They may be in conjunction with their mobile device, their phone or tablet. And I'm referring to those things as more that critical edge. As we start to look at processing that maybe back to a vehicle, now you're tying into larger network systems as well, right? And so latency starts to become a key consideration. I need to be able to make sure that I'm enabling that officer or that field agent the capability to process, maybe do that positive identification real time without them having to wait for, minutes, hours, because they have other things that they need to do, and it may be something that's time sensitive. Now, the other part of that from an infrastructure standpoint is we talked about maybe that wearable piece of compute or the edge maybe being a part of that vehicle system, right? When you're doing that, those are really custom form factors as a part of it, right? You start looking at what adaptability do I have to accommodate something that may be riding around in a Customs and Border Patrol agent's car that's bouncing around through rough terrain, or a police officer's vehicle. Those require special conditions. Obviously, if they're mounting in the vehicle, right, cooling and things like that come into consideration as well. And then that's tying back into a larger infrastructure in most cases, right? So now you're talking about your far edge or your near edge rather, and then onward after that with your core, your private cloud type of solution sets. So those type of solutions that you start to build out, those public or private cloud frameworks or a multi-cloud type of environment, depending on what applications that you're leveraging, all of those things come into context as we build out the holistic solution set. We work with a number of different partners like Intel to create kind of purpose-built video analytics systems for different agencies. That can include everything, like I mentioned before, to doing positive identification, to hyper focusing on ID cards and cross-referencing that to other database or sources. We've also done a number of different things to where that may be tied back to a UAS system, to where I'm using a drone to maybe fly out and assist a field agent, or tie that back into even with some of the work around the pandemic and using thermal imagery and things of that nature, and be able to cross-reference all those different data points as a part of your solution. Now, the beautiful piece about that is having a modular and open architecture to where you can plug and play between the different ecosystems. Because as we understand, right, that private cloud or a public cloud, or even your community cloud, that may have different applications from different sources, and that's where the support for multi-cloud automation orchestration comes into context as well.